So I think soft skills and the EQ is far more important than hard skills and your IQ in this industry.
Welcome to the PrivateChef Podcast, serving the 1%. I'm your host, Hannes Henche, and on our show we speak to the best chefs, how they honed in on their skills to excel in the industry, and what it takes to work as a private chef for some of the most exclusive clients in the world. Hey everybody, welcome back to the PrivateChef Podcast. I'm so excited to be here for this episode. I've been looking forward to this particular interview because we're going to hear the journey and success story of one of the leaders in our industry, Peter Van Ryder. Peter is the owner and CEO of Estate Management Solutions, a company dedicated to the private service industry. With his decades of experience, Peter is helping people set up and run their estates smoothly. He's been in the industry for more than 20 years, and he's helped a lot of private service professionals with his training and mentorship programs. We're so lucky to have him with us today, and I can't wait to hear his insights to our very particular industry. So thanks for joining us, Peter.
Thank you very much for having me, Hannes. It's great to be here and talk about an industry that I just absolutely love and am passionate about.
Yeah, I mean, that gets really obvious real quick talking to you, how much you love it, and there's like this true service heart and you love to be part of that industry. So where did it all begin? How did you end up in this kind of unknown industry for most people out there?
I think it's similar to, most people or almost everyone in our industry. You kind of stumble into this gig. And my stumbling happened with my first wife, who is a chef. And when we were first starting out, it was difficult for her to get a job as a chef due to lack of experience in a private home. She had some, and she's very good at what she does, but wouldn't garner a whole lot of attention. So I started out my hospitality career in a boutique hotel in downtown Houston, and then as a concierge, kind of graduating my way up through the ranks into management of a Crowne Plaza. And that is when my career kind of took a turn. I decided that the hospitality career, back then it was really low paying and just as demanding as what we do, but the management is way underpaid. So I said, I'm out, and I got into technology, actually. I got my computer hardware certification. I got a Microsoft certification, a Cisco certification. So I would build computers, program routers for a corporation. And I was really enjoying that because I'm a bit of a techno junkie. My wife has another term for it that I won't say because we're on recorded lines. So I love technology. I've always had my ears perk up when there's a new TV or a new computer out. So, but then when I transitioned in that industry and I was getting started and really enjoying it, that's when Enron collapsed and flooded the market with all these super high-end computer technicians and computer engineers, really. So jobs became sparse, and we said, you know what? Let's move up to the Northeast, change of scenery, change of location, and let's see what happens. So we moved up to the Northeast, and then we took over a luxury country inn for a couple of years. We were innkeeper team at this country inn for 2 years. It was a live-in position, and that is kind of what really got us the live-in experience and couples experience that we needed to show recruiters that, yes, we can work as a team and we can live in and successfully perform a job. And so we redrafted our resume as a couple team and started submitting it and got our first job out in the Hamptons. And now here I am more years later than I care to count, or that I have the digits to be capable of counting, in a whole different role than I ever thought I would be when I first came into this industry.
I must say, couples are very rare to find these days. I occasionally stumble over posts that have couples in them, but I think there's a lot less of them these days.
There's a risk. There's a benefit and a risk that come with hiring couples. When you hire a couple, you're kind of getting that buy one, get one half off salary range and benefits costs. So the employee value is easier to maintain. But if the energy or the chemistry or there is an underperformance with one of the couples, or one of the couples no longer gets burnt out, doesn't want to work for the family, what have you. If you lose one, you lose both. And that is it's a big gamble that a principal will take. And that's what they're usually weighing out of, well, do I want to take that risk for the cost savings? Some say yes, and some say no. I think that, if you're going to be a domestic couple, your marriage has to be on absolutely rock solid ground. And I say that because I would contribute working as a couple as one of the many aspects that caused my first marriage to not work out. When your marriage isn't on solid ground to begin with, and you spend 24 hours a day together, you go for weeks without seeing anybody else other than each other and maybe a vendor or two. It takes a toll. And you really need to be prepared for that. And I think that's one of the reasons why when we're looking at couples, we're looking for experience. Why my first wife and I had to go through what we went through in order to get the job. I get it now. I understand it because, it was that last position that we had as a couple when we decided to get a divorce. We met with the principal. We informed him. She terminated her employment relationship immediately, and I stayed on to finish the job and then exit out of New York back to Texas. But it is, it's tough. It is a tough thing to work as a domestic couple, but highly rewarding. I do the same thing now with my current wife, and I love every minute of it. Love having her around all the time. It is a completely different perspective.
Yeah, it's certainly a lifestyle one has to choose, I guess. So, but you did mention kind of the general chicken and the egg problem we have in the industry. It's where you're supposed to have experience, but nobody is giving you the experience. And one of the things you also mentioned before we got on the record is that there's a lot of candidates who think that they can do the job, but they don't quite yet have the professionalism that they need to perform well or be those dedicated service individuals. How do you usually help people to mitigate that and gain the experience, the knowledge to actually live up to the standards of those estates?
So I think the first step is that open and forthright communication between the recruiters and the candidates. And this is going to show us one of two things when we're addressing something like that. We're going to see either a candidate say, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Thank you. I'm going to go out and I'm going to retool my resume with your suggestions. I'm going to go get this education. I'm going to look at this. And that's how I'm going to help carve my career path. So there are ways to make your resume and you as a professional more appealing. But the other thing that it helps us identify is when candidates respond negatively to that critical feedback and to that information, that's also, it sends up a red flag for me. Okay, if you're going to respond that way to me, how are you going to respond to a principal when the you-know-what hits the fan in the middle of an event and he's stressed, you're trying to coordinate the event, he blows his stack at you? That's when instinct kicks in and you would respond how you would naturally respond to a situation. So if you respond negatively to my feedback and to my criticism, basically, my critical feedback, I've got alarm bells going off all over the place. So there is a catch-22 in this industry, and we get past it by searching out applicable education and training and skills that can go into your toolbox. And I think one of the skills, or a grouping of skills, that's not taught enough in our industry are those soft skills. We've got plenty of educational outlets that teach you, how to serve tea, or how to press a shirt, or how to arrange flowers, but very few, if any of them, are teaching the non-tangible soft skills that go into what a person needs to be able to survive this business. So I think soft skills and that EQ is far more important than hard skills and your IQ in this industry, because I can teach how to set a table. I can teach how to press a shirt. I can teach how to launder. I can teach how to clean. I can teach all these hard skills. What is much more difficult to teach are those soft skills of knowing it's not about you anymore. When you sign on that dotted line as a private service professional accepting the job, it's not about you and what you think is right anymore. It's about what the principal believes is right and what they see as the plan of action. You can bring suggestions to them to be better and increase efficiency, but you can't make them accept it. And if you respond to that negatively, you're getting in your own way, and that's your own ego getting in your way. And really, as I say, in our industry, there's only room for one ego or two in a home, and that's Mr. and or Mrs. Those are the only two egos in that home. A good private service professional will accept the fact that it's not about you anymore, plain and simple.
Yeah. And that's a tough one to swallow, I would say, especially for some of the chefs. They come out of a kitchen and there might have been somebody in that kitchen, and then they move into the private household, or they would like to move into a private household, and then they notice that it's none of that behavior is appreciated.
And chefs is definitely a special breed. Needless to say, they don't worry, you chefs out there are safe. But I do have a proclivity or a propensity for chefs. My current wife is a chef as well, I've got a huge amount of respect for chefs. The creativity that gets involved is beyond my comprehension and where my brain can go. But yes, some of the biggest obstacle that I see out of chefs is that ego. And I've interviewed chefs as a hiring manager that have said, "Oh no, I absolutely will not make frozen French fries and dinosaur chicken nuggets for the kids. I only cook from scratch." Oh. That's interesting. Well, there's the door. Because those kids, you can make them crinkle cut, but if it's not Ore-Ida, they ain't touching it. You can make chicken nuggets, but if it's not that mashed up pulp reformed into dinosaur shape, they're not going to touch it. And if they want Kraft mac and cheese, guess what you're making today? Kraft mac and cheese. And you're not spicing it up or, making it fancy. You're feeding kids. And if you, as a chef, if you cannot get out of your own way and you cannot step back and say, boy, I know this isn't the way that, we're not supposed to cook a good filet to well done. You know what? Doesn't matter. Again, doesn't matter what you want. The principal wants it well done. So you make it well done. Period. End of story, regardless of what your preference is or what you think is right. And I think that is one of the core obstacles that chefs coming out of the restaurant industry, the hotel industry, where, you know, you are in this locker room scenario almost, that you are, you know, your ego is appreciated and cultivated because you're good at what you do. Not in private service, not in a home. You're in a kitchen. Kids are running through. You got principals who are just around the corner at any given moment. So it takes a special personality. But again, like anybody else, you got to drop the ego first.
Yeah, it's definitely a very humbling experience in life to work in the private space. The many times where maybe even despite common sense, you just have to bite your tongue and be like, yes, sir, or you know, whoever you're speaking to. And those are
I've made
moments.
some great recommendations to principals about plans of action that would have saved them, you know, tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, or gotten something done quicker and the proper way. And really it doesn't matter. If that's not what they want to see, they're going to say, no, do this. Are you sure? Because this will save us $20,000 on the back end, and and this and this. No, this is the way I want it done. Okay. Now, in my head, I'm also saying to myself, we'll be talking again in 6 or 12 months when this fails miserably, but I'm okay. I've brought you the water. Now it's up to you to drink it. You don't want to drink the water. You want to drink the slime. Hey, I'm not stopping you from drinking the slime. That's not my job. My job is to convince you to drink the water. And if you drink the slime and then come back and say, you know what, I want the water, I say, great idea, sir. Here's a glass.
But I think we've all been there, where we really, try to even put it forth in the best of our ability and make sense of it, so they would make the sensible choice for everybody involved. And then we're just like, okay, I guess, as you said, we will revisit it down the road, and then we'll take care of it in whichever way needed.
Well, and usually it's the way we originally suggest, and in our brains we're all sitting there going, well, I told you so. If you would have just listened to me, we wouldn't have this problem. But outwardly we're sitting there going, oh boy, I wish I had thought about that. That's a great idea, sir. We'll get right on it.
So what are some of the challenges for families setting up a estate from scratch? Because I think that's also something that I've witnessed. There's a great difference for me as a member of a team coming into a well-run machine that's well-oiled and has been around for decades, and maybe even multiple generations where households, have been established, or moving into kind of a newer estate or family that's literally just gotten wealthy and has the resources now to have the support structure around them. What are some of the challenges for you to help them set that up, and what are the challenges that you help them mitigate?
So one of the biggest obstacles that we have is the understanding of it's their home. And there's more that goes into that than just the fact that, oh, yes, I get it. We're at, 123 Main Street, their home address. We're not at 254, Spring Street at the office. There's more to that. This is the mentality of the principal. You and I are walking through those doors as it's our office. And this is our work day. This is our work environment. And we're approaching it from the perspective of, I got to go in and I've got to establish policies and procedures, or I got to do what I need to do as work. They're sitting on their couch in their home. So trying to approach them and talk to them about human resources, and how to properly pay your staff and how to hey, it's a good idea to set up your LLC to manage the payroll and, to go through, well, payroll, what do you mean? Yes, we got to take taxes out. We've got to do that. No, well, can't we just do 1099? No, you cannot. So, the new wealth is, of course, always looking to save money. That the wealthy got rich by saving money by not spending it. So they're always looking for a method to save money. And one of them, of course, is pay your staff on 1099. Now I don't have to pay taxes and it's all on you. Well, that's inappropriate. It's not legal according to the IRS. Domestic employees are W-2 employees. Oh my gosh, I have to put them on payroll? Yes, you do. Well, but how am I going to? Okay, don't worry. There are services out there that manage that for you. So let's get you connected here. But again, we're talking to them like we are formulating a business, and they're still in the mindset of, I am sitting in my sweatpants in my breakfast room having breakfast, and you want to talk to me about setting up a chart of accounts or accounting policies and procedures for my home? I don't want to deal with that. That's a business thing. Yes, it is. That's why we're talking about it. So there is that mental aspect of their home, our office, and I encourage everybody to really get a deeper understanding of that very simple statement, because their brains aren't there. The old money knows that, this is what the estate manager does. This is what the house manager does. This is what the housekeepers, nannies, and chefs and everything. They know the roles because they've had staff for, decades or generations, to your point earlier. The new money sits there and says, well, boy, I need somebody to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then I need some to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and all the way to 10. Boy, that really sounds like I just need a personal assistant. So I'm going to find a personal assistant, but they get in touch with a recruiter and you start looking at it going, yeah, no, you actually need a house manager, or you need a house manager and a chef. Well, can we just find somebody to do them both? So they're looking for the more combined roles, which, combined roles can be successful, but with the right criteria in place. A chef house manager is going to be perfectly acceptable in a 5,000-6,000 square foot home that doesn't need a whole lot of policy and procedure development. But that same position in a 25,000 square foot home is just not going to happen. You're being pulled in too many directions. So again, there's that understanding of what the roles are, what the position titles are, and what they should get paid, without saying, oh, well, I want somebody to record keep all the records for my house. I want somebody to stock my fridge and my pantry every week or twice a week. And I want them to provide me meals 5 times a week, as well as lunches, and prepare the lunches for the kids. When the kids get home, hey, could you help them with their homework? You get all these little duties that all of a sudden add up. And all they're doing is looking to get their stuff covered. They're not being 100% cognizant that I might be overloading this person. And that's where it becomes the professional's job. And I say that with intention, professional, rather than a domestic worker that is just going to go in and do what needs to be done. The professional says, well, Mrs. Smith, I totally understand, but it takes me 4 hours to cook a meal for you. So if I'm working Monday through Friday, I'm cooking and serving dinner, well, that's a part-time job, 20 hours. And now you want lunches, and with that, well, lunches are going to be a little bit easier, but it still takes time. So, all right, now we got a 30-hour to 35-hour job. Now I've got 5 hours to help the kids with homework, to manage the vendors that are coming and going, to do this. It's like Mrs., I would love to be able to do this, but can we arrange for a meal delivery service on Thursdays? or can we cut out this day and that day, or can we switch this around? The professional is what guides those new principles into proper behavior, but you need to be a professional about it, address it with options, and help them make that decision and understand that the current pace is too much for one person to do. So it's a combination of the recruiter guiding as well as the professional in the house saying, can we do this instead of this? Or what do you think of doing A, B, or C instead of this? Because this is going to be too much on me, and I'm going to, your chicken's going to be undercooked and everybody's going to get food poisoning, something to that effect. Or I'm going to miss an important ingredient on an allergy list. Apologies about that. I'm going to miss an important meeting on or I'm going to miss an important ingredient on an allergy list and get someone sick. So it's about being professional and maintaining your boundaries.
Yeah, I think you put it so well, because that's really the difference. And I think that's where working with an agency or a recruiter makes all the difference, because you have somebody that can help you word it to the principle. Because I guess especially for people that haven't stood their ground, that don't look back on 10 years of experience in this space, for them it's really hard to speak up and be like, hey, I think we need to speak over this condition, because I think this is getting a little bit unreasonable between me running the dog out, fueling the cars, taking care of the kids, and doing all of the other things while cooking. And I think that's where someone like yourself, who actually helps the conversation and mitigate the expectations, I think it really makes a big difference for both parties. And I've been there where I've noticed that the principal just looks at me like, yeah, I'm home, so what do you want from me? And I'm like, well, your home is my workplace, so there's a professional relationship here. And to what you said, that's usually happens with younger families that are just kind of setting themselves up in that regard. So it's very interesting to see your perspective, and I think it really helps people what you just shared.
It also, I would also, as a recruiter, would never put a new chef into, or a new private chef, or really a new private service professional into a new principal's role, because there needs to be somebody with experience there that can tap into that experience and speak with confidence. To your point, if you don't have experience, you don't have the confidence as well. So you need experience to gain confidence. And we're also, you think about it, who are we talking to? Who are we disagreeing with? We're disagreeing with the most, arguably some of the most powerful people on the planet. People who are surrounded by others who just agree with their assessments and say, yes, we'll get it done. Now you come home and you have a, potentially what they perceive as a domestic worker, in air quotes. Why is this person telling me what I need to do? I've got executives that I pay twice as much that just, accept my feedback and go. Well, it's because what works there doesn't work here in the house. You may be able to run a company. You may be able to run the most successful company on the planet, but I will challenge you when it comes to your knowledge on running your own home, because it's not where your focus is. And that's okay. Yeah. That's what we're for. That's why we do what we do. But new professional always goes with an experienced household, and vice versa.
I like that. I like that. I've never heard anybody put it this way, and it makes perfect sense, because, this way there is no ambiguity as to what this job should entail and not. And then maybe sometimes I see people where a domestic worker turns into all kinds of things. And funny enough, I've had a couple years ago, and I think I've told this story before, but I'll share it again. I was literally interviewed by one of the richest families on earth. We're talking like probably top 15. And they asked me if I can clean the bathroom and take care of the toilet and stuff and do certain laundry things. And I'm like, I'm pretty certain you're not looking for a chef, because the position is clearly addressed to a chef. So they wrote the job for a chef, but it turned out later when I was speaking to the agency, what happened is, no, actually I wasn't speaking to the agency, I was speaking to his HR office from his company. So it turned out that the original chef was a domestic lady that turned cook, and then they were posting for a chef, and it just wasn't a match. And like a week later, I saw the actual post that now made sense for the position. So sometimes even established families, there can be room for, hey, does this actually match what we're looking for, or the expectation of the principals? And that's I think is so crucial, because at the end of the day, candidates as well as families want that match made in heaven. We are all looking for longevity. As candidates, we're looking for somebody who appreciates us for our skill set and maybe personality, and I think principals at the end of the day also just want that in their home. They don't want an ego in their home. They want pleasant experience in their home, and they want somebody who has the actual skill set to do the job.
Absolutely, and I think that the chemistry, the ability to get along with the principal will supersede skills any day, in a heartbeat. And I've said this. I actually use this example all the time. Is, you may be a great chef. You may be the world's finest French chef, and just top of what you do, several Michelin stars awarded to you, and you create beautiful food. But if that principal doesn't like French food, and it doesn't matter how good you are, you're not going to get the job. So it is more about the chemistry. But that chef goes in and starts talking with the family and establishes a rapport and remains professional. Even if they don't like French food, they're going to say, well, can you cook this? Or oh, yeah, absolutely. This is just my highlight, but I'm fully capable of all these other things. Oh, great. So chemistry primary, skills are secondary when getting a job in our industry. And although I will say, for all those chefs out there that are job hunting, y'all need to put a photo grouping together, whether it be on a Word document or a cloud drive or Instagram, somewhere. Principals want to see your foods. Y'all are visual artists. Show what you're capable of. And I think with that little tool will help that inexperienced private chef or inexperienced chef break into the private chef arena. If you can show me, you don't have a whole lot of experience on your resume, but look at those food photos. Holy moly. Yes, I want to talk to you. That is a absolute critical component. And to your point about the job description. So I've always said, our industry, the job description is a myth. It is purely an outline. From the time we start developing that job description to when it gets posted, it's changed a dozen times. And from the time we post it and interview the candidate and you go to the interview, it may have changed another couple of times. And by the time you take the job and 6 months in, it's going to change again, because we're dealing with human beings whose preferences and critical points change on a regular basis. And again, the good professional, like what you did, would sit there and say, you know what, I love this. You guys are great people, but it's not feeling, this isn't a chef job, or this isn't a household manager's job. This isn't this kind of role. It wasn't what I was wanting to do. I really like working for you, but I don't think this is going to work out. That's okay. But I think where some of the critical points are and where we fall into the deep, dark void of negativity is when you got to that point of this job description just wasn't, it wasn't accurate. Who did you blame? Did you blame the principal? Did you blame the agency? Did you blame the HR staff? Who did you blame? And what I find common and unfrustratingly common in our industry is that it's the recruiters. And it's like, hey, no, time out. You know what? I've spoken. I understood the same thing you understood. The principals changed it. And no matter how many conversations that you have with a principal, no matter how many site visits you do, they're still people. Their preferences are going to change. Their critical points are going to change. And what they want is going to change, I think. And that's why experienced professionals in inexperienced homes, so new wealth, need that, because those things change. And you need that experienced professional to sit there and say, you know what, congratulations on your recent pregnancy, but let's start looking for a newborn care nanny or a newborn care specialist, and then a nanny to fill in after that. Oh, what? You weren't going to do it yourself? No. That's not what I do. And so to guide them in when their preferences and critical points change, that professional guides them in the way to tackle those preferences in an appropriate method. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But it's nobody's fault other than the personality of the principal. Their preferences has changed, unfortunately so. Now this is what we're looking at. And the new money, their preferences change much more often than the old money does. The new money is like, well, this week I want a housekeeper, next week I want a laundress, and then the following week I want somebody that can set a formal table for me because we have dinner guests. That's where their brain goes. Oh, I've got somebody. I trust them. Here, blah, everything that I need done.
Yeah.
They don't realize the lines that have to be drawn.
One of the things I noticed is that some people think simply because they have a chef or maybe even a good housekeeper that the house turns into a 5-star resort. And that was one of the biggest challenges I sometimes saw, maybe especially, when it's time for the Hamptons or elsewhere, where I'm like, yeah, I understand that you're sitting at the pool and everything, but I'm not like your cabana boy.
That's absolutely. That is, it's amazing. They want luxury. And I've had to tell principals before. I had one principal that went on, they would go on private yachts and they would come back. It's like, Peter, why can't we get this level of service at the house? Well, for good reason. We can't run a Ritz-Carlton on a Motel 6 budget. You want that. We can make that yacht experience happen, but we have to double up our staff, double if not triple our staff budget, because we need redundancy. We need 24-hour coverage. We need, at least 2 people to be on hand, ready to take care of you and your needs at all hours, which means you can't just hire 2 chefs. You need to hire 3 because there's going to be days off. There's going to be sick days. So all of these components, and it's like, oh, well, we don't want to spend all that money, but we need to improve the standards. They'll get over it. They'll let it die off. It's like when any of us go to travel somewhere, our first thought is, my God, I could live here. I think I want to buy a house here. Rose-colored glasses, my friend, because you're seeing the vacation, not the reality of living in that environment. Eventually, all of us say, you know what? Nah, I don't want to move down there. I'm happy with where they're doing the same thing in their minds of, okay, that is wonderful, but I don't want to increase my labor budget from $1.5 to $4 million. Not worth it. So we're moving on.
Yeah, I mean that's sometimes really, it's like I understand that you would like to have that luxurious experience, but then we need a different payroll, a different kind of team altogether here, because I think everybody's pulling it together here for you.
By the way, don't forget, that means it's going to be people. Yeah, and by that's when you need a coordinator. So now you need an estate manager, chief of staff, director of residence to coordinate all of that stuff. And by the way, with that many staff, you're always going to have somebody in your home. Do you want someone in your home all the time, and do you have the space to accommodate someone in your home all the time? I've got one client that we were recently doing a site inspection for, and he wants a complement of staff. I'm looking at the house going, you don't want that many staff members in this house. You will never feel like you're at home or that you're alone. Well, but this is what we want. I appreciate that. And, we're still going back and forth, and I don't think the client's going to utilize us, which is fine by me, because again, unreasonable expectations are just a simple recipe for probable failure. So that's why I'm very careful with the candidates I represent, as well as the principals, because I want to do this job once. I want to get somebody a good job that's going to be in there for years to come. And I only want to get a phone call when they need more staff members, or that professional needs to bounce an idea off of me and use me as a sounding board. Then absolutely, I don't want a call from the principal saying, why, I don't like this because they can never, they're always around, and it's just, they never make this. Like, well, I understand that frustration. That's why we said we didn't want to do this, because of this. And so that's why we don't do it, is because of that.
Yeah. So you just mentioned something very interesting, that you try to work with principles, where you can, I guess, find reason, so you don't have to deal with a continuous bag of unreasonable expectations. How do you find, or maybe what's your approach to finding out who's a person that is worthwhile working for you, given that those are kind of the measurements you're trying to take?
So my criteria is pretty simple as to what I will do for clients and who I represent. And it has to do with 3 words: immoral, unethical, or illegal. If it's any of those 3, I'm sorry, I don't have time for you. 1099 payroll for all your staff, sorry, can't help you. You have a history of mistreating staff, not a history of turnover, but a history of mistreating staff. Okay, I won't represent you. On the candidates, I just expect full disclosure. I'm going to give that candidate all the insights I can to make sure that they are as prepared as I would want to be going into the interview. Now it's the candidate's job to ask the right questions, to decipher if this principal is somebody that they want to work for. So the power of the interview is in the professional as well as the principal. But if the client is too demanding, if they're paying under industry standards, I'm not going to take it on as a position because, several reasons. One, I'm not going to be able to find the professional to fill that job. I will be able to find a domestic worker to fill that job, but you, principal, are going to be looking at me saying, I asked you to hire a professional, not this. I need somebody that can, have forethought and make plans and do this and do that. This person is just a domestic worker, comes in, cleans the house, and leaves. So you pay for what you get. And if you're not paying a salary or a wage that I can confidently say I can find you a professional to meet your needs with that salary, I'm not going to take it on, because I'm setting the professional up for failure in a low-paying job. And 2, if I do put someone in there, they're going to be out of there in a couple of months once they realize how overwhelming it is. So there's just no point. I'm spinning my wheels to find a replacement and, all of those things. So if I think that it's not going to be successful or placeable, I tell the principals that. We've had some that come in that say, hey, I want a nanny for $20 an hour. Respectfully, I can't do that. There might be agencies out there. I'm not saying you can't find that person, but estate management solutions cannot, because nannies right now are going for a minimum of $30 an hour, plus benefits, plus travel reimbursement and overnight pay and all these additional benefits. I can't find you somebody for $20 an hour. I had somebody call me for a housekeeper they wanted I think they first called, they said 18 to 20. And I've got $25 an hour housekeeper positions. I've got a couple of executive housekeeper positions on the boards that are paying really well. We can't find people to put in those positions, qualified candidates to put in those positions. How do you think I'm going to find somebody at, 50% of that? I'm not. So Here's the reality, Mr. Smith. While I would love to do this for you, I can't. You have to hit at least this mark for me to have any chance of finding that person for you. And I had one principal come back and say, well, they gave me a typical HR graph of performance, a matrix, and say, well, this is how we define, the performance. And if we are going to pay $25 an hour starting, we expect this and this and this. And I sent it back to him with my notes saying, this is your $20 an hour employee. This is your $25 an hour employee. This is a $35 an hour employee. And if you want all of that list, that is your $80,000 a year. Executive housekeeper, house manager, employee. Oh, we don't want to do that. Sorry, I can't help you, because I'm not setting up myself for failure, and I will not set up a candidate for failure knowingly. Can't say it might not happen on accident or through undiscoverable items a few months into the job, but if you stay in regular touch with your recruiter that put you in the job, things are going to happen. I want to know if you're about to walk out. I don't want to hear from the principal that you're going to walk out. Call me. Let's talk about it. Let's go over it. Let's really digest and come up with a plan, because it's not that you exit. It's how you exit. If you do not exit professionally, if you just put your card and your keys on the counter and walk out that door, I promise you, if it was sound reasoning for leaving the job, okay. The fact that you did it unprofessionally, I've got some serious issues working with you in the future, because are you going to do it again? That is a prime example of unprofessional behavior. Yeah,
100%. Do you feel like salaries are in lockstep with inflation, given that we've seen some pretty drastic changes in cost of living? Do you feel like that is something that is reflected in the salaries right now?
I think that it is reflected. If from the principal's perspective, yes, it is. From the candidate's perspective, no, it's not. Which means it has. It's kind of been somewhere there in the middle. I think that, we do get paid. Chefs, private chefs, house managers, estate managers, we do get paid on the higher side of things, because we sacrifice of ourselves and of our personal time to commit to you. As I was telling a candidate a little bit earlier, I think I even said this to you a little bit earlier in the podcast. You sign on that dotted line, and it's not about you anymore. You sign away. I'm going to be here serving you on Thanksgiving Day instead of Christmas. I'm going to be, so that is built into that pay scale. I think the other issue that I see a lot is thinking that you're going to take your salary that you're making in New York or San Francisco and come to Texas and make that same number. It's not going to happen. It's just not. I'm sorry. And to expect that to happen is a classic trap of expectations lead to disappointment. Because they are, it is, well, let's use this as an example. For me, if I'm a house manager, I'm in Dallas making a good wage at $90,000 to $110,000 a year. I say, you know what? I want more money. I'm going to go work up in New York for the next 2 years, double my income, and then come back to Texas, and now that's what I'm worth. No, you got a raise because you went to New York or somewhere else to adjust for the cost of living. When you go back to Texas, you go back to Ohio or Nebraska or some other state that is much lower on the income scale, you're not going to be making that same wage. So use a cost of living calculator. And also, if the money isn't there, then look at other benefits. Can you get educational benefits? Can you, to further your career? Will they give you additional medical stipends, which are pre-tax? There's all these other benefits that can make it a little bit more palatable for you, but you got to understand regionally specific salaries. I have seen rates slowly increase. If you think, if we take the housekeeper, before years ago, they were earning $20 an hour, and that was a good rate for them. They're now garnering 20 to 30 is our starting point in Texas for a housekeeper. So rates are climbing, not as high as a professional would want to see, but higher than the principal wants to see. And usually if we meet there in the middle, all right, we have a good resolution because nobody's happy. Yeah. All right, we came to a good decision.
That's where deals are made, right? Where both parties feel like they're giving up a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah. We got to sacrifice something. So, I think, and the focus also needs to be, every job is different. Like I was describing before, a 5,000 square foot home takes a lot less to deal with than a 25,000 square foot home. And the needs of a chef in a 25,000 square foot home are going to be different than in a 5,000 square foot home. And does the family just want meal prep, or do they want gourmet, plated and presented foods? So all these criteria go into the salary. So instead of just looking at a job and saying, wow, I can't believe that they, underpaid that much, look at the details. If it doesn't meet your salary needs, move on. It's okay. No harm, no foul. Move on to the one that meets your salary needs. But just know it's going to be more work. The more money you want to earn, the more work you're going to have to do.
That's always the case. No, in every industry, there is no position where you just sit and roll your thumbs and the money flows in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Peter, this has been very, very insightful. It's always great to speak with you, connect with you. Where can people find out more about what you're doing, and where can they connect with you?
Absolutely. So I am on LinkedIn, is probably the social media network I pay attention to the most. But we're also on Instagram at Estate Management Solutions and Facebook under the same. My website is hnwsolutions.com for high net worth solutions.com, hnwsolutions.com. You'll find our ways to get in touch with us. There are all the information about my Essentials course, which teaches professionals how to write manuals and set up operational systems for homes. Information on that is there, as well as I've been developing an online course that is hopefully going to be released this month if we don't run into any more obstacles. And that's about those soft skills that we talked about earlier. It's all it is, and it's online, self-driven. all of that information is going to be online, and you can also call me. I can be reached at area code 214-605-7286. Just hit the 1 when you hear the auto dialer pick up, and that will route you straight to me. I welcome any questions, if somebody wants to rehash a conversation on a contrary point. Give me a call. I love to hear others' perspectives and feedback on it. And I think if we all have that mentality, we're all going to be in a much happier place with better jobs and a better industry.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much for taking the time, Peter. And have a great start into the year.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you for joining us at the Private Chef Podcast. If you know any highly skilled chefs that want to take their life to the next level, make sure to share this podcast with them. And if you enjoyed this episode, click subscribe and check out our upcoming episodes. Thank you for listening.